Zealous here, and today we'll be continuing Game Logic. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into it. Monopoly. In the late 19th century, the rich were getting richer and the poor were getting poorer. When reform movement believed that taxing land and only land would help fix this inequality. In 1903, Lizzie Magie invented a game she hoped would teach these principles. She painted The Landlord's Game. In 1904, in this board game, players snatched up as much land as they could, leaving other players broke. He intended the game as a critique of greedy landowners. No, in the end, her intentions backfired spectacularly. Lizzie tried to sell her game to the Parker brothers in 1904, but they rejected it. They said it was too political. However, other people played the game. They made their own versions of it. One of those versions, called Monopoly. In 1945, Parker Brothers bought Monopoly from a man named Charles Darrow. 1889 to 1967. After they made a few improvements to the game, demand for it started rolling in. When the company tried to patent the game, they found out it wasn't Charles Darrow's game to sell. It was Lizzie Magie's. Parker Brothers privately bought the rights from her. Publicly, the company pretended that Charles was the inventor. By 1936, Parker Brothers has sold 1.75 million Monopoly sets. The printed patent drawing for the game board invented by Lizzie Magie. Did you know? Early Monopoly tokens included the lantern, purse, rocking horse, cannon, iron, shoe, and thimble. Today, the only original tokens still in use are the battleship, race car, and top hat. Wrong. By 2008, more than 250 million sets of Monopoly have been sold. It is one of the most popular board games in history. Hasbro, the company that now owns the game, produces dozens of versions, including Star Wars and Game of Monopoly. Have you ever played different versions of Monopoly? Scramble. In 1931, a man named Alfred Butts, 1899 to 1993, lost his job. It was the middle of the Great Depression. And many millions of people were out of work. After the fun of roaring 20s, the country fell a majority economic slump and people struggled. throughout the 1930s to make a living. Alfred was one of the many people trying to find a way to make money. Local Monopoly. Hasbro makes dozens of variations of Monopoly, including Star Wars. In addition, thousands of Monopoly versions exist. Most are almost exact copies of the original. The also the places are renamed for a particular city or school. For instance, Dublin in Ireland, Aspen in Colorado, and Indiana University all have their own Monopoly editions. Some companies have also made the Monopoly editions based on sports, such as football and hockey, as well as on particular teams. Did you know? On August 27, 2008, 3,361 players united to break the Guinness World Record for the world's largest simultaneous game of Monopoly. One of his ideas was a board game. He designed an anagram game with letters on wooden chips. As he was testing it, he hit a snag. Often he would get a random assortment of letters that wouldn't make a word. Inspired by Edgar Allan Poe's story, The Gold Bug, Alfred decided to balance the number of tiles for each letter based on how often each letter appeared in everyday English. To do this, he counted letters in the New York Times and other newspapers. He called this game Let's Go. No publishers were interested in Let's Go, so he published it himself. By 1934, he only sold 84 sets. The game wasn't good enough. Alfred decided he set about improving it. Inspired by crossword puzzles, he divided his game board into squares, devised a point system, and added special squares. Double or triple with points. Finished his new game in 1938 and tried to sell it. He still had no takers. Alfred almost gave up. There are many styles of scramble boards. This one has this double letter, double word. Then in 1947, another man, James Brunot, 1902 to 1983, bought the rights to the game. He spruced it up and changed the name to Scramble. The game was still floundered, and Brunot almost gave up too. But in 1951, Brunot got a rush of orders from a department store called Macy's, and soon had too many orders to handle. Brunot sold the manufacturing rights to Long Island, New York, a company that had previously rejected the game. In 1953, This company had sold 4 million copies of Scramble. Eventually, the game was sold to Hasbro, the current maker of Scramble. Today, Scramble is still extremely popular. One out of every 3 homes in America has a Scramble set, and every year, tens of thousands of people compete in tournaments worldwide. The National Scramble Association sanctions more than 175 tournaments a year, including the National Scramble Championship. Cluedo. In 1943, a British factory worker named Anthony Pratt. 1903 to 1994 was born. He was doing his part for the war event by working in the factory. Evenings, though, were long and dull during World War II. Germany was bombing London, England, all houses and businesses locked out at night, plus gas and food were short supply. Anthony loved reading mystery novels, but they weren't new enough to keep him busy. So he decided to design a game inspired by mysteries. Anthony and his wife studied the works of great British mystery writers, such as Agatha Christie, 1890 to 1976. And the creator Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle, in 1859 to 1930. They took the best ideas from the authors. Anthony set the game in a posh country mansion and stocked it with a cast of characters and weapons. The players would be detectives trying to solve a murder. They would rely on logic and deduction to figure out the who, what, and where the murder mystery. At first, Anthony called the game Murder. By 1943, he had a game, impressive game publisher. They didn't like the name. The publisher made a few other changes and agreed to publish the game as Cluedo. It's a blend of the words clue and ludo, which is Latin for I play. Cluedo went on sale in Britain in 1949. Mahjong. Mahjong is a tile game from China. A typical set includes 144 titles in different suits, such as bamboo, wind, and dragon. Many theories exist about the game's origin. Archaeologists have found tile games of some form that date back to at least 1120 CE in China. Mahjong didn't spread throughout China, though, until after 1905. The Western world discovered the game after 1920. The game became popular in Asia, Britain, and the United States. Each developed its own variation of the game. Poker. Poker is a family of cards that involves bluffing and betting. Historians are not quite sure of poker's roots. Some historians think the game does go goes back 1,000 years. It may come from a domino game, like game played in 10th century China. Or poker may have evolved from a 16th century Persian game called Nas. The word poker, though, probably comes from poeg, a 17th century French card game. The French brought the game to North America, New Orleans, India, in particular. English-speaking settlers turned poeg into poker. By 1834, poker had evolved into a game which we know today, in which players have dealt 5 card hands from a 52 card deck and bet on the value of their cards. The game spread up the Mississippi River on riverboats and became a staple of saloons in the West. During World War I, American soldiers spread the game to Europe. As the decades passed, different variations of poker, including Texas Hold'em and 7-card stud, evolved. And that was today's video. Hope you enjoyed, and see you again very, very soon. Later.